welcome to another episode of Football Studies. I'm Felipe Tobar, your host, talking from Clemson University, the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management. Today, I am very happy to host a special guest. His name is Stuart Gibbs. He's a second-year doctoral student based within the Department of History, Politics, and Philosophy at the Manchester Metropolitan University. Although he's joining us from Glasgow, Scotland, he is doing his research at Manchester Metropolitan University. There, he explores the link between women's football and the entertainment industry and how much it has influenced its development. So it's my pleasure to say welcome, Stuart. It's a pleasure to host you here.
Thanks for inviting me on. It's a good chance to talk about women's football.
Yes, for sure. We're very, very interested in your studies. I think the audience will have a blast listen to you and your recent discoveries. So, Stuart, to kick off things here, can you tell us a little bit more about your PhD project, but also your trajectory within the world of football, particularly related to women's football?
I started out getting involved with women's football. It's actually a volunteer with Glasgow City Football Club. That was at a Premier side. And I did that for about 7 seasons. And then I moved on to Queen's Park Women for about 3 seasons. But in between that, I'm actually an art school graduate. I was doing sort of arts projects. One of the projects I was involved with is something called Moving the Goalposts, which is going to explore the history of women's football. And as we get into that, we discovered that there wasn't a lot known about. But it's actually been an understudied subject. So if we wanted a lot of text for it, we had to do it ourselves. So that's how I get into it. And the more you sort of explore women's football, the more information that was coming up, and the more stuff you're getting. It was just going crazy. And one of the things I noted was there was a strong link between entertainment and entertainment industry and the women's game. That's what led on to my PhD. It wasn't something I actually planned. I was doing all sorts of different types of history projects. I was did something with Great War Theatre with Kent University. And that was obviously there was a lot of people that were involved in that are names that from I was researching it I'd recognised from doing the football studies. And then again it's the Miracle Workers with Devil's Porridge Museum. Again, there was links to women's football because they had their entertainment branch. Basically, it was a massive factory at Gretna, and basically they kept a lot of the entertainment to keep them away from Carlisle and the sort of drinking dens. So they had them doing all sorts of sports and different things just to keep them in the factory site. And I was able to get a lot of information from that. And the sort of PhD, it was just a natural progression into the PhD sort of thing. That's where we ended up.
Did you have you also worked in museums in other spaces?
Yes, I have been involved. Well, I was involved with Devil's Porridge Museum, but I was also involved with the Scottish Football Museum at Hampden Park. I've done a couple of projects with them. Did the First Ladies of Football projects. There was an exhibition. I've also been involved in the Heritage Trail, which about women's football. There's also another project to do with Dumfries and Galloway museums. They invited us down. It was a joint project between them and the football museum. I was involved in that as well. So it was quite a lot of. My last show a game for girls. That was in Montrose Museum. That was the last year, so that's pretty much was a combination of everything I've done so far.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So Stuart, can you educate our audience on the first reference to women playing football, when that happened, and how that happened in history?
Well, I think women were always, I mean, sort of football sort of developed as a sort of folk in sort of rural communities. There's all sorts of traditions attached to it, like sort of a Shrove Tuesday and that sort of thing. Women were sort of involved in that as well. The first reference to women playing football was some of the church records of Carstairs, which is in Lanarkshire, it's north of here, in 1628, where the local procession minister sort of complains about men and girls playing football during the Sabbath. There's a similar complaint in 1656, but then into the 18th century, they actually get matches. One of the earliest ones I've been able to find was in Bath in 1726. There's also married v singles type matches was played. There's one from 1786. I think it was a time women from Coldstream and Leno played a match. I think that's from the Berwick Museum. That was a literary magazine.
Yeah.
And statistical accounts of Scotland, they record matches in Varesk in Lothian between the Fisher wives. Again, that was a marriage v singles match.
Mm-hmm.
But it became, it moved to association, basically from entertainment. It was theatre entrepreneurs, it was actually entertainment entrepreneurs, George Frederick Charles and Alex Gordon, had the idea of emulating the Scotland v England matches, which were quite popular at the time. And their first match was in Edinburgh in 1881. And it was mostly from people drawn from the theatre and entertainment. One player we sort of know about, she played under the name Louise Cole, but she was actually born Constance Louise Cole Cooper. She was married to James Cole, who's also an actor and comedian. And they were actually on tour in the north of Scotland with Carrie Balliol. They seemed to be a threesome. They did sketches as this sort of threesome act. They were attracted down to Glasgow to take part in this football tour. After the first match in Edinburgh, they played at Burglen at the Sheffield ground, but that didn't go quite so well because they ended up in a pitch invasion.
Wow.
Went into the second half. There was a large mob. It congregated outside the ground. And round about the second half, they managed to break into the ground. When all the people sort of piling in, they forced a lot of other people onto the pitch from where it just deteriorated. I'm not really sure why that happened, but it seems to be that it was a protest against the price of the ticket entry because it was about a shilling to get in for the ground. So it was quite expensive for that time. I mean, if you're paying a shilling for a football match, it's mostly the grandstand or something. You wouldn't expect to be paid it for the whole ground. And it's Sheffield at that time was more sort of like for sports entertainment, sort of going lunches and all that sort of thing. So I think that it was the local mill workers that were, well, some of them were women actually. So the first examples of women's football hooligans. But I think they were aggrieved at having been basically shut out of one of their own areas. So they decided to break in and cause mayhem. But as a result of that, there was a court order stopping them playing any more of the matches arranged. So there was another match they arranged in Kilmarnock that was called off. And I think there was supposed to be one in Dumbarton as well, but they were scrubbed. So the party had to move south and play. They played at Blackburn and Halifax and Sheffield as well. They had other matches in Manchester, but again, they had the similar problems from Glasgow with sort of pitch invasions. Again, I think it's surprising, but I think also that they seem to do quite well in Liverpool, which is interesting because that wasn't really a football centre at the time. It was still to develop. The other places where they were having problems, football was more established. I think people are sort of aggrieved at the sort of like this novelty acts invading their territory sort of thing. So I think that's you notice a joint. They also seem to be mimicking the Scotland-England matches that were being taking place, because some of the reports comment the girls or the England girls for their dribbling skills, and the Scots for the sort of combination play, sort of passing, etc. That seemed to be they seem to be aping the styles, which is a jet. It's more sort of pastiche than an actual match. But I think both Charles and Gordon was sort of financial troubles. But when they disappear from the records for about 6 months until about September, when they come back, they're refurbishing theatres. Gordon goes over to Dublin to refurbish the Queen's Theatre in Dublin. And Frederick Charles, he'd been a advertising agency person, and he ended up refurbishing the Theatre Royal in St Helens. So you got to think, where did the money come from? So it must have been from the football tour. So they must have done quite well out of it. So
interesting. And those pictures that are showing here are from different teams of the period, like particularly the last two here to the right.
Well, the first one, that's a reenactment of the Carstairs match. They're not really sure what they were playing. They complained about it was sort of like in the church report. They were complaining that they were playing the fiddle, barley breaks, and footballing. Barley breaks is quite interesting because that's a sort of old country game which was involved in groups, and you sort of like basically you had three sets of couples. One sort of like in the goal, and you've got to sort of try and get the other couples. It's like tag sort of thing. But the thing about it is it was probably the same group that were doing the ballet breaks or doing the football. But we only had the minutes. If we had the actual report, we'd probably have had their names as well, which is a shame, but we don't have the minutes. The one in the middle, it was Louise Cole, the player I was telling you about. She had quite an interesting story because once she left football, she actually remarried Clarence Smithson, became Louise Smithson, and they did their own stage thing until she retired and became a secretary of the Women's Music Hall Association, or sort of music hall union. But one of their members, Cora Crippen, well, she sort of disappeared, it became very suspicious. So they
Huh?
sort of pestered the police to investigate Crippen, and a sort of body was discovered. So she actually gave evidence at Dr. Crippen's trial. So it's quite a, a bit of a story. And the
Yeah.
one was Alex Souls' uh, trip. After
Mhm.
the success of the 1881 tour, other people started putting together their own football teams. And Alex Soul, he had his own, I get his, the Edinburgh and Grimsby teams. He sort of toured the country with that. And there's a report in some the St James Gazette for women's football match that took place. They don't name the ground. It's a field in Lanarkshire, they call it. But there's another reference to a women's football match that took place in 1884 at Hampden, the second Hampden Park.
Mm.
So I think that's the same match.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Who and was Carstairs that played in Second Hampton Park at the Second Hampton Park, or was different teams who played?
Yeah, with different sides. Uh-huh.
Okay. Interesting. Um, very, 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 very fascinating. Uh, so moving forward, here, Stuart, can you share how the growth of association football for men in the early 1870s have influenced the entertainment entrepreneurs to promote women's football, um, to attract more more crowds and generate more income? Can you share how that happened and those purposes too?
Well, well, it kept going. It was more sort of like an entertainment sort of thing. Different people sort of saw it as a way of attracting a crowd. I don't
Mhm.
think sort of regular football was probably that keen, but you had the British Ladies Football Club when they sort of formed in 1894. A lot of people sort of look at that as sort of the first sort of proper football team because all the previous sides had connections to entertainment. But if you dig into the British Ladies Club, they had just as many connections to the theatre as the ones previously.
Mm.
Because you had people like what Alfred Shute Smith, and it's mostly the Smith family that
Smith.
formed the British Club, Ladies Club. It's basically his sister Phoebe played a part, so did his sister-in-law Jessie Allen, his
Mhm.
wife Anna Orphan. She was involved as well. But Alfred Shute, I think he wanted to be in the entertainment industry. He's basically an estate agent or trade, but I think he wanted to move into entertainment, and he was using the football side as a way of breaking into it.
Mhm.
There were certainly a lot of the players involved in stage as well. There's an Ellen Dunn who appeared as uh, on the field as Ruth Copeland, but she also had a stage presence as Willie Flexmore. Uh,
Mhm.
when she left the British Ladies, she had a career on the stage through into the 1920s.
Oh.
Um, I think she toured, I think she was in vaudeville for during 1900s, 1907,
Mhm.
uh, or to the American tours.
Oh,
There's another, there's another player, Violet Clarence. She also had a stage career. Uh, she married a John Cahoon, a theatre manager. But in the 1900s, she stayed in the south of Glasgow at 105 Albert Drive, Albert Road, rather, which is quite funny because that's about 100 yards, about 200 yards from where I live. So, quite
really?
strange.
Wow.
But um,
What a coincidence.
Yeah, well, there's quite a lot of them to the north of the studio, where Glasgow City used to play at Peters Hill Park, just a few yards away. There's a site of the business centre. That was the old Hyde Park ground. That's where the 1881 players practiced before the match in Edinburgh. So, like the first women's association match, or the first time women played association football in open play. There's a bit of few just up the road there. It's quite strange.
Uh-huh. Uh, Interesting. Uh, so those matches of the British ladies that you are showing this in this picture particular,
Mhm.
uh, they were more for entertainment purpose, not for any sort of like competitions or how that was playing there.
They were structured within the team. There's a North v South, or Reds v Whites, and they didn't really. There were other teams that formed. Um, there's a team in Birmingham that set up. Uh, there's also there's another theatrical person, Carol Thompson. He formed at his own side, the French and English ladies. They sort of toured about 1896, but they never played each other. It was all sort of like
Mm.
they all complained about each other. There was another team that formed that toured around. I think it was Dillon, people from Dillon Gymnastics Company that sort of formed a side. They
Mhm.
played at Blackpool at the same time that the British ladies were in Preston. And when they found out about it, they started calling themselves original lady footballers. Sort of, that's where that name comes from. If you've ever seen it, it's because of
Mhm.
the sort of the rivalry. But they never played each other, which is a bit
Oh,
strange.
yeah,
Um, do yeah.
interesting. So can you tell us a little bit more about the British ladies football club? As you show in the picture, they have lasted more than a decade, right? Like 11 years
Mm.
or more. They what happened to this? Why? Let's put this answer at this question maybe. Why they disappear? How was their trajectory?
I'm not really sure because Alfred Stewart Smith, he went into a number of things. He became the manager of the National Skating Palace in 1896, but I think that folded after a few months, and then they had a change of management, and he got kicked out, so he was back to the football again. But then he got involved with the skating,
Huh?
the roller skating craze, so he became manager of the Wimbledon Skating Palace. Uh, and I think the wife Hannah Laughlin, she ran the football well because there were still while he was still with the skating, there were still matches being played up to about 1905. Uh, but I think they separated round about 1905, 1906. And I think Hannah Laughlin went back up to because she came from Newcastle originally. And I think she went back up there, and I think that's when that's when British ladies sort of folded, basically. And Alfred Duke continued on with the skating until the skating craze collapsed in about 1911.
Yeah, yeah. And any of these women playing at that time with the British ladies, do you have any records that they continue playing or to
Uh,
in other maybe teams, clubs?
Not really. I'll show you the next slide,
Okay.
because you had Nettie Honeyball. She was like the sort of front spokesperson for the club. There's a lot of debate about who she actually was.
Mhm.
Um, one theory was she was a Nelly Honeyball, and I think it's another name that came up was Anne Jane Honeyball.
Uh-huh.
They was competing because no one really knew for a long time who she was. But it turns out both Nellie and Anne Jane were related, and are both connected to 56 Wellington Street in London, so
Hmm.
Pimlico. And I'm not really sure, sort of like, which one's the actual Nettie Honeyball. But
Yeah.
that's her in the first picture of the three people. Nettie's in the middle, standing.
Hmm.
I just wonder, what age do you think she is?
Um, Probably the center.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
mm,
one in the center.
yeah,
Was she the captain or she?
yeah. She was the captain, but what age do you think she was from
Who
the
do I think she
photograph?
was?
What age?
What age? I would say on her late 20s.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I thought. Because like the, Nellie was born in 1873, so she'd have been about 21 at the time of the British Ladies Club when they started.
Yeah.
Aunt Jane was born in 1867. So
67.
that would put it within the age range you've just quoted. So I'd go for Anne Jane as Nettie Honeyball.
Huh. Interesting. So is there is there any reason for why Honeyball,
No, that was her name.
or is it a nickname or
Actually,
last?
she's actually an upholsterer. In fact, they're both a family of upholsterers. Anne Jane was a teacher pupil at one point as well in their early career.
Uh-huh.
Because they all tried to claim that there were people from the middle classes, sort of like, but
Mm.
when you look through their backgrounds, it doesn't really add up. And certainly, a a teacher pupil at that time would have been sort of like working class schools.
Mm.
So it's
So the ladies playing at that time were more working class.
yes, I think that's why I'm linking it to sports entertainment because like I mean, a lot of sports were for sort of privileged women. If working class women were going to do sports, they had to do it for a fee or be paid in some sort of way. Say like
Mhm.
the swimmers and pedestrians, etc. And that's what I think's women footballers were in the same sort of category.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can see the connection. Yeah. So in still in these pictures here, Stuart,
Mm.
who are the other two here?
Well, the middle one's someone called Helen Matthew, and she appeared as Mrs. Graham for the British Ladies Club.
Mhm.
But they had a second string side, and she sort of led that as Mrs. Graham's 11, and she sort of toured around Scotland as well. But
Mhm.
in her earlier career, though, she wrote for the newspapers with her sister forms. They had their own sort of sports column. So Wolverine Lassies that appeared in the Liverpool Echo and quite a few papers actually.
Uh,
Um, she also played it with her sister in sort of like the early 1890s with people like Alex Payne. He used to organise uh, ladies v gentlemen matches. So I think she was involved in some of those.
oh,
Um, there's also a hint that she might have boxed. She might have been involved in boxing. Because,
boxing.
yeah, because there was a tour in 1894 with Fred Oakley and Miss Wallace.
Mhm.
That might, I can't say for definite that might be her,
Mhm.
because she disappears from the records after 1894. But Miss Wallace suddenly makes a reappearance in 1897 looking for challenges. and she had finished with football by this time. So it is a possibility.
So did they also play different sports at the time, like boxing, cricket, or that was a common thing across these?
Yeah, I mean, I think quite a lot of the footballers did other things. Helen Marsh, she was involved in equestrianism in the 1890s. Was,
Mhm.
I think she kept horses at the Hollies in uh, Liverpool.
Interesting.
I think I don't think it lasted very. I think she had financial troubles about 1912 and had to sell up. But
Mhm.
she married one of her jockeys and they set up a haulage business in Birmingham. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was that.
And the last lady is her sister.
No, that's Lady Fawn Stixie. She sort of she promoted the elite because she was a part of the aristocracy, and
Ah.
she helped promote the British ladies. Because you see it in any of their adverts, so her name would have been on it. But I think she bought into the idea that they were all middle class ladies, were all sort of like, and
Mhm.
it tied in with her own political views. I mean, she's very much into the National Dress Association and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Uh, but I don't. I think when she once she got word wind of the the theatrical connections, I think that's when she got cold feet and sort of pulled out. I think the first indication was when the British ladies played at Paisley at St Mun. uh, there was there's it was noted in some of the reports that at least six of the players were involved in the pantomime, and one of them had connections to Edmund Fleury, the Paisley theatre manager. So
Mhm.
it was. I think when she'd seen that, I think
Mhm.
she got kind of suspicious.
Ah.
Uh, but they kept still using her name until the following summer when they were touring in Ireland, when Lady Fawn sent a letter to the Irish papers saying that she was no longer, she wasn't a manager of the football team
Oh,
to
see.
stop. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Uh,
Is so among those women playing the sport, there was some sort of communion to kind of support the sport. Was there any discussions around their rights to play those entertainment games, like we that happened like 20 years later on with the FA ban, right? Was there any sort of controversial for them to play the sport?
yeah, yeah, there's what are quite a negative. Some of the reports are sort of matches are hair curling, but um, women were sort of more accepted when women were appearing as individuals, so like high diving or swimming or being a
Mhm.
pedestrian or something, or cycling even. That was more acceptable. But when you get into team sports, it's more a sort of Corinthian spirit. It wasn't really acceptable for women to do that, or looked on very favourable. The only thing they really got away with was cricket. They seemed to accept cricket more. Um, but even there, they're touring the English Ladies Cricket Club. They toured in 1891, but they were a professional side because again it was all sort of working class women, and there's some theatrical people involved with that club as well, and people sort of took a dim view of it because of a professional nature.
Mhm.
And that's another criticism throughout the British Ladies Club, because they were paying the players for the matches.
So the British ladies, of course, they pay their players because they're also
yeah,
entertainment workers. And that's like, what are the links? So it seems that there are strong links between women's football and the sports entertainment, as you've been showing. Can you tell a little bit more about that? About those links between women's football and sports entertainment in the 20th century, right? How that developed. I think you also touch on theatrical matches.
yeah, yeah. During the 1900s, we had the skating craze. You actually had women's football as a skating act. Had George Ray, a sort of like music hall entertainer, who became a theatrical promoter. He came up with his own sort of football girls, and he sort of took, I think it was about 4 a side on stage. And they actually sort of had the stage set up like a mock football stadium, and whatever town they went to, they'd have the local teams, or the team rivals at the local town. But they became later on. They took part in open air matches at White Hart Lane, and they were sort of charity matches. There was a lot of the people like hang on, Fred Lumley and people like that. They get involved. They promoted a lot of these sorts of matches. Also, a lot of the games were used as promotion for a theatrical performance between sometimes the women in a particular review would have a match to help promote the performance. There's evidence of that. There's a match played at Kafkin Park, which was originally the second Hampden, but when they moved over to the third Hampden, third Lanark took it over and renamed it Kafkin Park. There's a theatrical matches played there. And during the Great War, obviously you had the missionettes, etc. But the first the wartime fundraisers, they were actually theatrical performances. You had Portsmouth ladies playing the Hippodrome ladies. So, and you also had because I had Harry Weldon. He organised, or he was part of a sports fete at Nunhead in near London, and that was a sort of, the ladies' football match as part of that. It was a sort of keep to the right and look out reviews, sort of review companies. They formed part of the team. One of the most famous of the wartime theatrical matches, so it was Fred Lumley. He had a series of sports carnivals at his ground in Edinburgh at Powder Hall. And part of the sporting events were the ladies' football match. That was a sort of pantomime. People from the King's Theatre and the Theatre Royal, and there were sort of photographs of some of these matches, and they went all around the country. They actually went abroad as well. I found some of them in newspapers in the US. One of the Philadelphia papers, there's a player called, they seem to think it was one of the, she's actually married Bremen, but one of the American papers seem to think she's Grace Ford, who's was one of the, uh, that was the, um, oh, what was it? Women, the Women Film Studios in Philadelphia.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that's quite right, but you know, it was interesting to see that match went all around the world. So
Yeah. So basically, there was a program uh, that they developed to promote the matches, but that included comedy, theater, all in between or after, right?
yeah,
Was not just the match, the football match. There was
mhm,
all something
yeah,
more.
events. Yeah, a lot of the football clubs they started their own sports days as well. They'd have different. They'd have different running events, athletics events, and stuff. A
Mhm.
lot of these were I think the first of the women's football tournaments sort of grew out of there. But they're
Okay.
sort of hybrid events, like you'd have the factory teams like Cardonald and Mile End, but you also have a theatre review team. Uh,
Oh,
So they're kind of hybrid. There's
hmm.
hybridization with these sort of events.
Yeah.
But
And I can see in the picture of these women playing uh, football here that there was a lot of people watching in the stands,
yeah, I
right?
mean, they're quite popular. Yes.
Do you have any numbers related to attendance?
Well,
Like,
quite even sort of like British ladies or some of those, they tended to break attendance records.
uh,
Even when you go to small towns like one of the highest attendances we've had for a football match was when the British ladies came with their sides. And during
wow.
the Great War, you're getting
Mhm.
the match at Celtic at like 15,000 or so.
Yeah.
Uh, these kind of that's kind of figures.
Uh, yeah, that's and in this short picture here called Fair Footballer, that's how they try to promote the match.
Well, they had it mostly as funding. A lot of the matches were for specific things like worth funding. The one in Edinburgh was for refreshment kitchens that they had at the train stations.
Hmm.
And that was just basic to fund that, to keep so that the troops travelling had somewhere to eat while they were in transit. And that's basically she's going around collecting money for that's part of the fund collections.
So crowdfunding. Uh, so you mentioned that they have done domestic tours across the UK, right?
Yeah,
Um, and but also you also said about international tours. Is that correct?
yeah,
So they, where did they normally go? Which cities, towns in the UK they normally went, and abroad? In which countries they travel? Do you have this information?
yeah. Well, they're going. They spent a lot of time in Ireland.
I,
Um, uh, they had a resident team. There was an Edinburgh ladies, which became their sort of resident team. And when they travelled over to Ireland the first time, the, the Edinburgh team became Ireland, so they could get an audience.
yeah.
But enough. But they started finding local players that could play as well.
Mhm.
One of the most famous ones was Molly Seaton. So she became part of the the, the Edinburgh team.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and she was involved quite a bit with Rutherglen ladies. Um, they also because once they did their tour of Ireland, they took it over to Scotland and did some matches in Scotland, sort of like 1927, 28.
Mm.
And then he went down to England to play in Manchester with the teams. Uh, I can't remember the stadium they played. It's fair. Oh,
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's a lot of information to recall.
oh, I should have written it down. It's funny because it was the match the ground they played at in Manchester. It's where they had it was it was the venue for the 1895 FA Cup final.
Oh,
Which is strange,
it-
considering that women's football was banned from football grounds. Here they were at one of the FA Cup venues,
wow, that's remarkable.
but it wasn't a football ground anymore, so it wasn't part of the FA. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. Interesting. Um, so how I think you mentioned in one of your articles that I found in the Manchester Metropolitan University website that there is a link between uh, this link between women's football and entertainment. They continue in the next few decades up to the 60s. But you say that it was over with the 1971 unofficial World Cup in Mexico.
yeah,
Uh, can you tell us a little bit more about that? But feel free to continue talking about what happened in between wars because
that was
that
just sorry. It
very
was just that was just relating to all the stuff I'd said earlier. Basically from the Rutherglen Ladies tours, etc. So I forgot to put the slide on, so I covered that already anyway. But going back to 70s, you had people like Hughie Green. He was a child star in the 1930s, and again, like a lot of the things I mentioned earlier, he had his own youth entertainment shows as new young talent sort of thing. And to promote that, you'd have boys v the girls football matches. But when he moved into television, he did his own sort of opportunity knocks TV show. One of the guests suggested that they should have she was talking about women's football, and that he should get involved. So he got together with Billy Buckland to organise, who's a holiday camp organizer, and
Mhm.
to organise something called the Bucklands Cup. Um, at the same time, Sir Arthur Hobbs, he was trying to sort of set up women's football as a proper sport, and he's sort of getting together the WFA, and he's sort of like, so there was a sort of clash between the two sort of thing. Uh, but with Mexico, there were also sort of rival groups setting up to organise international tournaments, the unofficial World Cups. And I think the FA and UEFA were getting sort of quite nervous if this starts taking off. And I think the Mexico World Cup, I think that really scared the horses because you're getting 110,000 crowds at some of the matches. So I think we need to get them back into the tent, as it were. I mean, one of the reasons I think women's football get banned was because they were talking about organising their own association. They
Ah,
didn't want a they didn't want a rival body playing football being successful. Um, and the same thing happened in Scotland. They sort of they came down on it in about 1948. But that was after the success of Edinburgh Dynamo. They played a local team. They played Bolton Ladies. But afterwards, we're talking about setting up their own grounds and having their own league. And I think again that's what sparked the SFA to move against women's football.
Wow.
But so it's funny that the reason that the banned was the same reason it got unbanned, because they were afraid of this group getting these new international groups sort of developing and building a game outside of FIFA control. So they decided to bring them all back in, sort of thing. And I think the Mexico World Cup sort of marks probably the end of the big, the end of the connection between entertainment.
Mhm.
Because they had a lot of celebrity matches to start from. You'd have the group games, and then you'd have celebrity matches featuring local film stars. And
Mhm.
Carmen Salinas, uh, people like that. In fact, she wrote her own sports column as well during the tournament. But as Mexico started doing well, when you look at the newspaper reports, most of it's about the celebrity match. Then the actual group match would be a wee bit at the bottom. But as the tournament progressed, the, the actual proper matches were more, they get more prominence. And by the end of the tournament, the celebrity matches were forgotten about altogether. So there's always a change in the regard in the middle of that tournament.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Eh, and how many teams or national teams play in the unofficial World Cup? How how successful was that? Do you have a have?
Successful in terms of people taking part. There's certainly a lot of crowds. There was, I think it was 8 teams or something. I can't actually remember now. I should have checked. But
No problem.
it was kind of strange because France played in the Netherlands. That's considered the first official women's football match. But it was a qualifying game for the Mexico tournament, which was unofficial. So it was kind of a bit confusing. But the England took part, but it was mostly sort of club sides, and the WFA weren't keen on them at all.
Mhm.
Harry Batt, the manager, he was suspended from involvement with football when they came back. So they were determined, the people that running women's football were sort of determined to sort of kill off the entertainment side of it. As far
Mhm.
as Mexico was concerned, I mean, there was a lot of crowds, but it didn't seem to help Mexican football very much. I think it's after the tournament is over, it was sort of like it was it was kind of forgotten about. Uh, it was really into the sort of 1980s, 1990s before it sort of becomes recognised again. So
Yeah, by
it
FIFA.
was just a strange blip in the historiography of women's football in
Yeah.
Central America.
So, besides the England team, did the Scotland team play there or Ireland?
No,
No.
no. Rose Rose Riley and Elsie Cook, they were Scotland players. They were actually offered a place on the England team. They were going to rename it as sort of British internationals.
Mhm.
But the local club said, if they go, that you'll have no club because they played for Stuart and Thistle. They put their foot down. Uh, Also, the WFA or the SWFA, rather, they weren't keen on it as well.
Uh,
Um, so they had to pull out, and it just went as an England team.
yeah.
It's mostly sort of Luton, round about Luton area, sort of local clubs.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Interesting. And well, that kind of tells us a lot about the roots of women's football entertainment. Um, a question that is off the script. Um, how do you see today um, the these football organizations like the FA, maybe FIFA, how they are engaging to talk about the history of women's football? Uh, do you think they are doing a good job, or how do you think they're like
We're
paying
getting better. It's getting. It
better?
used to. Yeah, it used to be that the British Ladies Club. That was the first match they played at Crouch End. That was always touted as the first women's football match.
Mhm.
It wasn't even the 41st, you know. But they're getting better. More the figures. There's more people sort of working on it now. It used to be a few people sort of working away in women's football history. More people are getting attracted to it. When I was at BSSH conference, there were quite a few people doing women's football as a topic. So it's starting to develop, and I think it's feeding into the FA and FIFA historiographies as well.
Yeah. Is the National Football Museum in Manchester also covering the topic?
Yes, there's quite a good. It's a long time since I've been in it, actually, to be honest. But there is quite a few examples of women's football, and in the cases, it's not like a wee token
Yeah.
case somewhere in the corner. They do sort of cover. The one thing I found strange, there's no reference to Manchester Crown Fiends. That
Mhm.
might have changed right enough. Probably somebody else put in the comments. No, there
Ah,
isn't.
yeah.
But at the time I was there, there was a trophy that Stoke won. Uh, they went to Barcelona to play one of the French teams, and they were both sort of like because they'd won the English Ladies Football Association trophy, and
Uh-huh.
the French had won their own national cup. So it was probably the first Cup Winners' Cup trophy. Uh, uh,
Wow.
but they've got that, but they had nothing for the Manchester Crown Fiends, which is
Uh-huh.
never mind.
And how I don't know, like I've been seeing the emergence of football tours
Mm-hmm.
like in different cities. Like I actually follow one in Glasgow, and it's delivered by a woman, by a lady. I don't know if you ever attended those football tours, and if you have attended, do you know if they also talk about women's football in reference to where they go?
Yeah, I know Wendy Hamilton it does the tours, but I haven't actually. I've never been on one because I don't even go to games now because I just don't have the time. I'm too busy studying women's football to go and watch it. So
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I dare say the I've been able to identify sort of like where some of the grounds are. And there's the grounds where Mrs. Graham played, just along at the end of Alexander Parade. She's just a few yards from where I get my hair cut. that, that's still there. It's actually still a football ground. They use it for training for the local
Okay.
teams. So
Yeah,
it's still it's not just a site like on this site was. It's still an
yeah,
actual ground.
yeah.
So
And the blue, I do know, like by studying, there are several blue plaques of recognition, right?
mhm.
Of sports celebrities across the UK. Uh, are there any growing numbers of recognitions for women footballers that you have been seeing, or
Well, there's one for Emma Clark, who's I think first black woman footballer. That's on the Campbellsburn School, which is the site, which I think is the site of the um, Crouch End match, first British lady, their debut match.
Mhm.
There's also a plaque at Hibernian Social Club, which is on part of the site of the old Hibernian ground where they played the 1881 match.
Mhm.
So that's sort of
Interesting.
that's been recognised as well. But they can certainly do sort of probably some more. I think
What is,
there's a Lily Parr statue at the National Football Museum. I don't know if you've seen that.
oh, the in Scotland?
No, that's in Manchester, the National Football Museum.
I've
Uh,
been once only, but that was 2019, like a few years ago.
oh, right. Yeah,
Yeah. I
I
I, I
think
did,
I don't think it was. I don't think it'd been installed yet. I
okay.
can't remember when it was. Well, it might have been actually. I don't know. But
Was has been any recognition to these women's that you have researched, like the Carstairs or like the
well,
ladies football club?
well, there's references. Some of those paintings I had. Go back. With some of these paintings, well, the one of the Carstairs painting, that's at the Scottish Football Museum at the moment. They've also got one of Helen Matthew as well.
Mhm.
So she's because she claimed to be she's actually born in London, but her family's sort of like from Montrose. So William Matthew, he was a ship's captain.
Mhm.
She also sort of claimed herself as being Scottish, and she actually played in Scotland. So there's
Mhm.
actually going to be a committee formed to have more women uh, included in the Scottish Football Hall of Fame.
Ah,
So
which is in the Scottish National Football Museum, right? There's a
yeah, so that's going to be going ahead quite soon. Uh, so I think we'll be able to get a good more of the old because at the moment there's only Rose Riley and I think there's only about two women players.
Mhm.
Uh, it's in at the moment, so they want to sort of get more of a balance and spread that out. What we're sort of hoping to do is have it more sort of like generational, right across the sort of full range of sort of women's football activity.
Yeah.
It's not just like
Mhm. It's interesting because so the recognition for women's football overall, particularly in Scotland, in England, is growing, right? It's
yeah,
growing on
starting to go.
these history projects that you also are involved.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I do remember at the Scottish National Football Museum that in that Hall of Fame you have Sir Alex Ferguson, right?
Mhm.
There and now these women footballers will also be there. It's more than deserved.
Yeah.
Um, so Stuart, uh, we're coming to an end here in this very rich conversation. I would like to know how do you see the future of um, research in women's sports? Uh, do you have any ideas where we'll be going through? What are the next necessary steps? Maybe some parts of history that still need to be researched, and also you can tell a little bit more about how your research is going to develop in until the end of your PhD.
Well, it's developing all the time. I think the digital revolution has given it a real kickstart. Um, you're getting access more to a lot of material. Um, Digitization, it's quite good. Tells you quite a lot of things, but also tells you where to look as well. So you might get the odd fragment of a newspaper report, but you can go into the local paper. It isn't. It's probably you probably have to go to the British Library itself or go to the area and pick out more details.
Mm.
Um, Certainly, I think the connection between entertainment and sports, women's sports, is probably more. I don't think it's been tackled that much. I think that's an area people probably need to look at, because I think there's a lot of detail that's been missed out because they've not considered sort of the entertainment aspect. So I think that's where a lot of development's going to be. As far as my PhD is concerned, they'll just be pressing on basically. I'm going into my third chapter, which is going to be covering a lot of the entertainment matches in the Great War during the 1900s and into the Great War period. So a lot of the stuff that they've already mentioned, like that's basically what I'll be doing in my third chapter.
So. Very interesting. And where the audience can find you, Stuart? Like, are you in on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm
you
on Twitter.
and can you tell your Twitter for them?
It's Toad at 68.
Perfect. I will make sure that I also include in the description of the video. But are you also going to any conference this year? Are you planning to?
Yeah. Well, there's an international football conference that's going to be at Cardiff this year. So I'm going to be going there, and they'll be talking about Alfred Smith and his career with the British Ladies Club.
Oh, amazing.
But there'll be the British Ladies, the BSSH conference. That's going to be at Chichester University in August. So I'm hoping to be there as well.
It's very interesting. And if any of our audience can, as I said, wants to know more about Stuart's research on women's football, make sure to send him a message on Twitter. I can tell you, he's super open to answer any questions. And
if you know the website Playing Pass, we got a few articles in that.
Oh, that's interesting. I will make sure that I also include that in the description. But Stuart, any final remarks from you? You wanna leave?
I think I've talked myself out. No.
Well, thank you very much for
No
we're recording that on a Saturday. We started at 8 a.m. here in the United States, and now it's 3 p.m. in Glasgow, right? So I really appreciate your time on a Saturday. It's not easy to conceive that. But thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right. See you next time, Stuart.
Okay, bye. See you.
Bye-bye.